What's going on, everybody? It's your big homie, the Armchair Operator, and welcome to today's video. Now, if you're new to my channel, welcome. If you enjoyed today's content, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. Become a part of the family. We would love to have you. And if you're coming back to the channel, thank you so much for coming back to the channel. I really do appreciate it. And I hope that you also enjoyed today's content. So as you saw by the title and the thumbnail, today we are going to take a look at the Rost Martin RM1C. This specimen right here. But before we get into all that, first, a little bit of housekeeping, as always. I am not promoting or condoning the sale of any firearms on this channel. All of my videos are for information and educational purposes only. First and foremost. Second piece of housekeeping, I always have to give a big shout out to the team and the crew over there at the Bunker Gun Shop. My guys, Chris, Frank Bank, the entire Bunker 1 and Bunker 2 team. Thank you so much for always supporting the channel. Third bit of housekeeping, I got to give a big shout out to my boy Joker 1016 for actually providing the firearm, this thing right here, for this review. So with that out of the way, let's take a look at the Rost Martin. All right, so first and foremost, the Rost Martin RM1C is a firearm that's produced by an American-made manufacturer. And just judging from the price point, this is intended to be more so a budget-friendly option, especially for those who are looking to get their first firearm. You know, they want to spend a ton of money. And I think that this particular firearm is intended to fit their particular bill. But what we're going to do, we're going to head on over to the tabletop like we generally do, dive into the specs and features and everything that this thing comes with. And then we're going to slide on over to the range, see how it handles under live fire conditions, and come back here and close this thing out like we generally do, right? All right, so without further ado, let's head on over to the tabletop. Welcome to the review space. We have the Rost Martin RM1C down here on the tabletop. And you know how we get down on this channel. We got to verify clear before we do anything else. So let's go ahead and do that. All right. Magazine is clear. Firearm is clear. Good to go. Safe direction. Boom. Put the magazine back in for aesthetics. And we are filming in a safe and controlled environment. I do not have any live ammunition anywhere in the review space. Okay, let's take a look at this Rost Martin here. So as you can see, this particular firearm is more so the same footprint as like a Glock 19, something along those lines, like a compact firearm. Of course, it's chambered in 9mm. And the 400-pound, or should I say 800-pound gorilla in the room, this thing is ported. So this is the ported model, but they have different variations of the RM1C that are out there. This particular one happens to be the ported model, probably, I would argue, probably the most popular model. So let's take a look at what's going on here. So this particular firearm actually came with the Viridian. This is the RFX 11 green dot. I think it's a green dot. Yeah, green dot. It comes with this. Now, this particular piece, I believe YouTube won't allow me to really get into where it came from because of policies and things like that. But let's just say if you go on the interwebs, there are certain bundles around about where you can get this particular piece with the dot and some other accoutrements that come with it, which I will get into in a little bit. But let's take a look at the sighting setup. So we just have like a white dot front sight, black dot rear sight, you know, typical sighting setup. And of course you have the Viridian RFX green dot sight. Let me see if I can get that in there good enough for the camera. Let's see here. Not sure if it's coming up, but it's there, I promise. All right, so pretty decent slide serrations overall. It's nice and grippy. You can really grab a hold of it, do what you need to do, right? One, I would say, con about the RM1C that I'm just going to get right out of the way. There's not a whole lot of texture on the firearm. Granted, you see like up here where the memory pad is for your thumb, there's some texture there, but it's not very aggressive. And I'm guessing that since this particular firearm was marketed more so to the EDC concealed carry market, they didn't want to make the firearm texture a little, that too aggressive. But that being said, it just comes off as being a bit smooth. So me personally, I would immediately source some handle grip tapes or some skateboard tape or something like that, just to give it just a little bit more traction. That's like my biggest con about the RM1C. Let's see, moving on from there, we have, we got your standard trigger here with the trigger dingus. The trigger feels a little heavy, in my opinion, a little heavier than that of a Glock 19 or something like that. But let's measure the trigger. All right, so let's see. Woo, yeah. Looking at about 5.8 pound trigger pull. Let's try that again. .74. All right, we're going to do it again. Let's take that mag out this time. Let's try it again. 5.149. So as far as EDC guns, the trigger is not terrible. Let me just say that right off the hop. It feels heavier than a Glock 19 trigger, in my opinion, out of the box. Some would probably disagree. The trigger pull gauge is basically like you're running about an average of 5.6 pounds or whatever. It's not terrible, but it is noticeably heavier than some of the firearms in my collection, like notably my CZ P10C, but more on the P10C down the road. But let's take a look at what this firearm comes with. So look, check it out, y'all. This thing comes with a nice savior bag, and this bag is very, very nice, y'all. So let's open this up. Now, another thing, this firearm comes with quite a few magazines, as a matter of fact. But like I said, this was a kit. This was a bundle kit that you could find if you know how to use the internet. So we have, this is a 17 round magazine. It's a 15 round with a +2 extension. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 17 round magazines. And then we have a nice flush fit 15 round magazine. So you want a little deeper concealment look, a little smaller footprint, there you go. 15 round magazine, flush fit. So now you basically have a firearm that's essentially Glock 19 size. But if you want a little bit extra, hey, you gotta check that out. You see how it shot that magazine out of there? This magazine release ain't playing. And now you got 17 rounds, and you have some full size guns that don't even have 17 round capacity, or it has 17 round capacity. So I think that's really good. And like I said, look at that. See, nice. And like I said, with this kit, you really do get a lot. You get a nice savior bag. You get like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 magazines, and a light, and a red dot. And a red dot, and the optics plate. You can't. I think that's solid value. That's solid value. That wouldn't break the bank. Now, this is the RMR footprint optic. As you can see, the Viridian RFX, what's that, the 2 on there? Yeah, RFX2. I don't really have a lot of experience with Viridian dots, but so far, from my usefulness, it has a nice, big, bright green dot. It looks like it, I can't get the dot on the camera, but just looking at it here, I would guess it's about a 4 MOA dot. If I were to guess, somewhere in that ballpark. I think it's really nice. Let's see, we have ambidextrous magazine release. So push it that way, we can release it. We can push it this way and we can release it. I haven't had any issues with the magazine release. It's been pretty good. Let's see, squared off trigger guard, so on and so forth. Interchangeable back straps. I'm not sure which size this is. I'm guessing it's the default back strap, and I believe the rest of the back straps might be in here somewhere. I'm not really sure, but it does have other back straps. This is the little Rost Martin band that usually comes on the firearm. I just took it off because I didn't want it to disappear. Again, like I said, this does not belong to me. But, and of course, you got your M1913 Picatinny rail underneath for your lights and lasers and so on and so forth. So, I mean, all in all, that's basically for the what we're looking at here. It's about, barrel-wise, it's about a 4 inches style barrel. It's a little shorter because of the comp here. and you have your striker status indicator. That means that it is currently cocked. When you don't see it, hold on, safe direction, boom, you don't see it anymore. Striker's cocked again, and we're good to go. So all in all, like I said, that's basically it. However, let me just show you the P10C. So this is my CZ P10C ported, right? And of course, we got to verify clear as always. Clear, magazines clear, safe direction. All right, that aesthetics. All right. So this is my P10C ported. The trigger on this feels a little softer than this, but it's still breaking around a 5-pound trigger. So, I mean, I would say as far as competitors in the market, I would say the CZ P10C porter is probably the main competition between the Rost Martin RM1C. So just look at these two for aesthetics. Here they're about, the slide length is very similar. I think the Rost Martin is just a little bit shorter. Grip wise, it's a little bit shorter. Capacity wise, this is a 15 round magazine with a +2 extension to make 17. You can get 18 rounds in here if you finagle it enough. I don't recommend it. I've done it accidentally, but you can. And also you have your accessory rail underneath. So like I said, these are very similar firearms. So anyway, that's pretty much it for the tabletop. Let's slide on over to the range and let's see how the Rost Martin RM1C handles while shooting. Welcome to the range portion of the review. We have the Rost Martin RM1C right here, and we're just going to get a good feel for the gun. We're not going to do anything too crazy or anything like that. We're going to put the target at 7 yards. I got 2 mags loaded up, and let's just see how the Rost Martin feels. I have some concerns about the overall lack of texture on the thing, but we're going to see how it handles under recoil. So let's get started. All right, y'all, first up, the 15 round mag. All right, right off the bat, the recoil impulse is actually really nice. That port in the barrel helps to tame that recoil a bit, so it doesn't feel snappy. Trigger's a little on the heavy side, but it's not anything that's too terrible. I think it's kind of middle of the road. The lack of texture, while it really wasn't that big of a deal, I could see it becoming a big of a deal if the minute your hands get wet, the minute you start to sweat and all that. That's an easy fix. Some handle it grip tape should easily fix that. But so far, man, this thing is on the money. I did zero the dot before I got here using my bore sighter, and I think it's pretty much on target. Let's look at the target and you tell me if it's on target. So that's what we're working with. Right here, 7 yards on the money. All right, so far so good. Let's get the target back out there. Let's load up and let's do some double taps and see how it responds. All right, it's time for the 17 rounders. But again, we're gonna do some slow double taps. I'll show you what I mean. Now, once you start to speed up the cadence of fire, that lack of texture becomes apparent. But at the same time, like I said, so far it's a good shooting gun, but that lack of texture, that's my only gripe with it so far, but to be perfectly honest. But let's take a look at the target. All right, so this is what we're working with. Threw a couple of them down here, just speeding up the cadence of fire. But for the most part, I mean, it's on the money. It's on the money. So, so far so good. But let's push that target out a little bit further. We're gonna go for the head box at 10 yards. This time we got the target at 10 yards. And like I said, we're gonna go for the head box. Just take it slow and steady. Basically, we're going for accuracy right now. Then maybe after that, we can spice it up a little bit with some more double taps. My accuracy wasn't the greatest on that one, y'all. The shots kept dropping a bit low. Let's take a look at the target. All right, so as you can see, got one on, two mics here, and that pesky low and left. Low and left, 9 times out of 10, is support hand grip. But at the same time, I don't want to sound like a dead horse with the lack of texture, but like I said, it's noticeable. It's noticeable, especially when you have a lightweight gun, but it's not snappy or anything like that. And I'm getting used to the trigger. But anyway, we're gonna clean that up. We're gonna clean up. We are absolutely gonna clean this up. We're gonna slow it down just a little bit. All right, time for a reshoot. Let's see if I can clean this up. Still not satisfactory to me, but that's not on the gun, that's on the shooter. But let's check the target. I had a few more on. Low and left, but a little bit better. I guess the main takeaway with the RM1C is just remembering the fundamentals. Good, solid, very strong support hand. Make sure you worm the trigger back like you're supposed to, and put enough pressure on the bottom of that grip to keep that muzzle up so your shots don't drop low. I think what we're gonna do now is do a little bit of self-defense drills. I don't have a holster, so I can't do any holster draw, but I do have a shot timer, so we're just going to do a quick 5 shots on target at 5 yards and see what those groupings looking like. All right, so let me transition. I'll get right back with you. Slight change in plans. We can still do the 5 shots at 5 yards, but we're going to do 5 shots, reload, 5 more shots at 5 yards, and see what those times and those groupings looking like. All right, so let's do it. I screwed that timing all up, y'all. Yeah, we can't even count that. 13.5. We need a redo over that. So hold that thought. Let's do it. Let's go again. All right, we're gonna go again. 5 shots, 5 yards, reload, 5 more shots. That wasn't bad. 891, not too bad. But let's try that again. All right, one last go around. This time we're going to do 3 mags at 5 shots, 5 yards. Not bad at all. Let's hit the target. My first string ended up here. That's mainly because that's where the dot placement was. For the most part, everything else was on. So all in all, for its initial impressions, I'm pretty satisfied with the results so far. So let's head on back to the review space and close this thing out. So to sum things up, the RM1C, while not a perfect gun, I think it's pretty good for the most part. Like I said, my main gripe is the lack of texture in the gun. And that lack of texture was actually apparent while I was shooting. Now, granted, my groups were probably pretty good, I think so, especially at relatively short distances, you know, self-defense distances and so on and so forth. My only concern is if your hands are wet for whatever reason, whether it be sweaty or whatever else, might be a little bit difficult to really get a good grip on the firearm. So like I said, that's easily fixable. A little bit of handle it grips tape or some skateboard tape, or maybe you could send yours off to get it stippled. So like I said, that's an easy fix. That's not a big deal. And to get what you're getting for, I would say, around the sub 500-ish units of measure, so far, I think this is a pretty dope gun. I don't have a ton of rounds to it. Like I said, this is not my particular firearm, so I won't be able to put like 1,000-round burn down through this thing. But I think it would hold up fairly well. I mean, honestly, the port actually tames the recoil quite a bit. And even though the trigger feels a little on the heavier side and the lack of texture, like I said, my groupings I think were pretty decent for the most part. The green dot held up. I haven't had any issues with it. Like I said, of course, again, I can't do any torture tests or anything crazy with this dot or anything like that, but I think it gets the job done. Green dot, especially with my really terrible eyes, my eyes really pick it up very well. And as far as like presentation and so on and so forth, like if you were to draw it from the holster, I don't know. I think, like I said, there's a lot here that I like about this particular firearm. Now, that being said, what is your experience with the Rost Martin RM1C? Let me know down in the comment section. Let's get this discussion popping, y'all. Now, and I have another question. Y'all saw my CZP-10C, right? It doesn't currently have a dot on here. How do you all feel about a versus or a comparison between these two firearms? I think something like that would be beneficial, especially being as though they're kind of in a similar price point. This particular thing new is sub 500 credits, right? And this thing is also sub 500 credits. They're both compact style firearms, similar capacities, similar features, and so on and so forth. They're both ported. So what do y'all think? Do y'all want to see a versus comparison video between the Rost Martin and CZ? Let me know down in the comments. Also, which one do you think will win that versus? I have my thoughts as to which one will probably win, but I'm going to wait. If y'all want to see the video, I'll definitely make the video happen. I shot these two side by side, and I do have some opinions about these two as how they mesh up well together. But anyway, let me know. Now, with that, I'm going to turn y'all loose. Thank y'all so much for watching this video, and always taking the time to support the channel. This is your big homie, Armchair Operator. I'm signing out, man. Peace.